plague of Justinian, 541 to 542, recurring to 750, was a pandemic that affected the Byzantine, Eastern Roman Empire and especially its capital Constantinople, as well as the Sassanid Empire and port cities all around the Mediterranean, as merchant ships harbored rats carrying plague-infected fleas. Some historians believe that the plague of Justinian was one of the deadliest epidemics in history, which was renewed over 2 centuries, killing an estimated 25 to 100 million people. At the time of the first epidemic, there was a death rate equivalent to half the population of Europe. The social and cultural impact of the plague has been compared to the Black Death that devastated Eurasia in the 14th century, but research published in 2019 argues that the death rate and social impacts of plague have been exaggerated. Spanish flu or Spanish flu is an influenza epidemic caused by a deadly subspecies of the H1N1 virus between 1918 and 1920. Spanish flu became one of the biggest epidemics known in human history, as a result of infecting more than 500 million people, causing the death of around 50 million people in 18 months. 2. 3. The epidemic progressed in 3 waves as a moderate first wave, a severe second wave and a third aftershock. 4. A feature of the Spanish flu. This is because it affects healthy young adults more than the frail, elderly, and children. In the last months of World War I, it affected the whole world and even, according to some historians, it was an important factor in the end of the war that lasted for 4 years. Citation needed. The word group, Spanish flu, has been used in Turkish since 1918. As a result of samples taken from some mass graves opened years later, the disease, which was understood to be caused by the H1N1 virus, same except for a few minor differences, that caused swine flu, started to be called Spanish flu, due to the translation from English. Although the epidemic did not start in Spain, the reason why it is called the Spanish flu is that Spain did not take part in the First World War, and because of military censorship, the epidemic was not mentioned in other European states, while the Spanish press brought the epidemic issue to the agenda for the first time. Although there is no definite agreement about the exact origin of this epidemic disease, there are 3 opinions. The first view suggests that this epidemic was first seen in China and from there it spread to the whole world. Due to the dense population of animals and humans in China, there were frequent local outbreaks. Studies of the American Medical Association have revealed that this view is actually unfounded, albeit partially. The second view argues that the disease spread to the whole world through the Western Front, where the bloodiest battles of the First World War took place. Similarly, again there was also a dense population of humans and animals here. The third view points out that the origin of the epidemic is the USA. With the participation of this country in the war in 1917, millions of soldiers were transferred to Europe from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. 5. The epidemic is considered to be of American origin by many historians. The Black Death, also known as the Black Plague, is the deadliest epidemic recorded in human history. It is thought to cause the death of 75 to 200 million people in Eurasia and North Africa. The epidemic, which reached its peak in Europe between 1347 to 1351, was the deadliest epidemic in human history. The cause of the disease is the bacterium Yersinia pestis. Although bubonic plague is common, pneumonic plague and septicemic plague can also be seen. The Black Death was the beginning of the Second Plague epidemic. The plague created religious, social and economic upheavals that had a significant impact on the course of European history. The origin of the Black Death is disputed. The pandemic occurred either in Central Asia or in East Asia. However, its first definite appearance was in 1347 in Crimea. It was carried from the Crimea, most likely by fleas that traveled on the Genoese ships and lived on black mice. Spreading from the Mediterranean basin, it reached the rest of Africa, Western Asia and Europe through Constantinople, Sicily and the Italian peninsula. It is believed that the Black Plague, after landing on land, spread mainly from person to person as pneumonic plague, thereby allowing the epidemic to spread rapidly inland. There is evidence that he explains, this was faster than expected if the primary vector was rat fleas that cause bubonic plague. The Black Death was the second major natural disaster to hit Europe in the late Middle Ages. The first was the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317, and is estimated to have killed between 30% and 60% of Europe's population. The plague in the 14th century. It is estimated that it has reduced the world population from 475 million to 350 to 375 million. There were other epidemics during the late Middle Ages, and along with other contributing factors, the population of Europe did not regain its 1300 level until 1500. Hong Kong flu is a Category 2 flu epidemic that killed nearly 1 million people worldwide between 1968 and 1969. The disease-causing type A H3N2 virus was derived from the H2N2 virus due to antigenic deviation, which is defined as the combination of viruses with more than one subtype and the emergence of a different virus medium from the original. It was named Hong Kong flu because the disease first appeared in Hong Kong. The 1957-1958 Asian flu pandemic was a global epidemic of influenza virus subtype H2N2 that originated in Guizhou, southern China. The number of deaths caused by the 1957-1958 pandemic is estimated at between 1 and 4 million worldwide, making the epidemic one of the deadliest pandemics in history. A decade later, the reclassified H3N2 viral caused the Hong Kong flu pandemic, 1968-1969.